3 years earlier, Johnson's life had been nothing like this. Back then, the walls of his rented apartment were cracked and damp. He was a kind-hearted man, handsome, soft-spoken, and respected for his honesty. He and Ruth had married young, and in 6 years they had 4 children. Their home had been filled with laughter, the smell of fried plantain, and small dreams. But the storm began when Johnson lost his job at a logistics company. For 3 months Ruth tried to manage, but every evening her words turned sharper. "You've ruined my destiny, Johnson," she would hiss, slamming plates on the table. "I made the wrong choice marrying you." Her complaints grew louder. She called him lazy, a failure. She began sleeping with her phone under her pillow, whispering to someone at night. One morning she packed her bags and left, leaving the 4 children behind. The youngest still had milk on his lips. Johnson sat on the edge of the bed, holding the baby while the other 3 cried. Her last words before the door slammed were, "Don't call me again. I'm not the mother of a poor man's children." From then on, every day was a battle. Johnson sold his wedding ring to buy food. He fixed shoes at a street corner, swept offices at night, and still only managed 2 meals a day for the children. He hid his tears, pretending to be strong so the kids wouldn't break. Then came the worst moment. The twins fell sick with severe infection. The hospital demanded a deposit he didn't have. He sent message after message to Ruth, now married to a wealthy politician. She read them but never replied. In desperation, he took the bus across town to her new house. When she opened the door and saw him in his torn shirt, she stepped back like he was dirt. "I am not the mother to a poor dad's children," she spat. "Don't ruin my destiny again, Johnson." The door closed in his face. That night, one of the twins died in his arms. Johnson buried his child with no coffin, just a small wooden box. He didn't tell Ruth. He went back to his street corner and worked harder, his body thin, his face older. Yet every time he tucked the surviving children into bed, he whispered, "One day, this will end." 3 years of hardship passed. Then, by sheer chance, he got a job as a gatekeeper for a multi-billionaire loan contractor. The old man had no children and trusted no one. But he watched Johnson, saw how he refused bribes from visitors, how he stayed late to help drivers unload goods, how he read financial newspapers at the gate when others played cards. The old man started talking to him. He learned about the children, the lost twin, the betrayal. Something stirred inside him. Years Johnson worked like a soldier. He never stole a coin, never lied. One rainy night, the billionaire fell sick. In the hospital, he held Johnson's hand. "You are the son I never had," he whispered. "Everything I own, it's yours now." By the time the old man died, Johnson was no longer just a gatekeeper. He was the owner of one of the largest loan companies in the region. He moved quietly, investing, building, and protecting his children from the media. Meanwhile, Ruth lived in luxury with the politician and had a new child. But she couldn't stop thinking about showing off. She stole money from her husband's account and took a huge loan from Johnson's company, unaware who owned it. With that money, she built a mansion meant to scream, "I made it." She even wrote a letter to Johnson's old address, inviting him to see how destiny has favored me. The letter reached Johnson. He read it slowly, folded it, and smiled for the first time in years. She wanted to humiliate him, but she had no idea who she was inviting. That night, he sat in his study, under the soft glow of a lamp, planning. "This time," he murmured, "I will not just show up. I will teach her a lesson she will never forget." He ordered a private jet. He gathered every document about the loan she'd taken. He prepared the surprise that would shake her world. As the day of the party arrived, guests filled the mansion. Ruth rehearsed the speech she would give to embarrass him. Cameras were ready. But a roar filled the sky, a jet landing nearby. People rushed outside. A tall man in a navy blue suit stepped out, flanked by aides. The murmurs began. "Isn't that? Wait, who invited him?" Ruth's heart pounded. Ruth's fingers dug into the stem of her wine glass as Johnson moved closer. Guests whispered. The cameras flashed, thinking they were capturing a reunion. But Johnson's calm face had a storm. He paused right before her, his eyes locking on hers. "Good evening, Mrs. Ruth," he said softly, his voice steady but heavy like thunderclouds. "Congratulations on your new house." The way he said Mrs. made her chest tighten. This wasn't the same man she had spat on. He didn't look broken. He looked powerful. A guest leaned over to another. "Isn't that the CEO of Midas Loans? What's he doing here?" Ruth's ears caught the words. "CEO? Midas Loans?" The name of the company from which she had borrowed millions. Her throat went dry. 2 days before the party, Johnson had sat with his legal team. Spread across the table were documents bearing Ruth's signature, the loan agreement, repayment schedule, and evidence of her stolen funds. His senior lawyer, Grace, looked up. "Sir, if she defaults, we can seize the property immediately. Even her husband could face charges." Johnson steepled his fingers. "No, not yet. I want her to see me first. She planned a show. I'll give her one. But this time the cameras will capture the truth." He had also made sure the children were safe. He didn't want them anywhere near the scene. That night he prayed, not for revenge alone, but for the strength to remain calm. "Let her feel what she made us feel," he whispered. "Let her taste the pain of humiliation." Now, in the glittering hall, the master of ceremonies handed Ruth the microphone. She had rehearsed a speech about rising from poverty and choosing the right destiny, but her voice cracked. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, eyes darting to Johnson. I, she swallowed. "I'm glad to see an old friend here tonight." A murmur swept through the room. "Friend," someone whispered. Johnson reached into his briefcase and pulled out a slim black folder. He handed it to her with a slight bow. "I thought you might want to see this," he said. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside were copies of the loan contract, the bank transfer she had made from her husband's account, and a legal notice of impending seizure. Bold letters at the top read, "Notice of default." Gasps erupted across the hall. Photographers zoomed in. The politician, Ruth's current husband, who had been standing at the back of the room, stepped forward, his face darkening as he saw the documents. "What is this, Ruth?" he barked. "Is this true?" Her knees almost gave way. She had never told him about the loan. She thought she would pay it back quietly before he found out. Johnson's voice cut through the noise. "This mansion was built with my company's money. Under the agreement, if payments are not made on schedule, the property reverts to the lender. That lender is me." A hush fell over the hall. Guests stared. Ruth's mouth opened, but no words came. 3 years earlier, in their small kitchen, Johnson had once said, "One day, you'll regret walking away." Ruth had laughed then. Now, standing in her own mansion, she couldn't stop shaking. Her husband turned on her, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You embarrassed me, Ruth. You stole my money and took a loan behind my back." The cameras captured it all. Guests began whispering, "She's finished. She's going to lose everything." Ruth tried to grab Johnson's arm. "Please, not here," she whispered desperately. "Not in front of everyone." He leaned closer, so only she could hear. "You didn't care about in front of everyone when you called me a failure. You didn't care when you left our children." She blinked. "The children? They're fine," he said coldly. "Better than fine." At that moment, the politician snapped his fingers at his security. "Throw her out of my house," he ordered. But Johnson raised a hand. "Wait. This is not his house," he said loudly for all to hear. "Under the agreement, this property belongs to my company, and as of tonight, it's under my control." Another wave of gasps. Journalists scribbled furiously. The politician's eyes widened. His own security looked confused. Ruth felt her world collapsing. She had planned to stand on this stage and humiliate Johnson. Instead, he had turned the mansion into a courtroom, and she was the accused. She tried one last time. "Johnson, please, think of our children. Show mercy." His eyes softened for a split second. "I am thinking of them. That's why I'm here." He signaled to an aide who wheeled in a screen. It flickered on. On it appeared pictures of surviving children, well-dressed, healthy, smiling at a prestigious school. Underneath were receipts showing Johnson had paid every fee. Gasps again. Ruth clutched her chest. The crowd began to murmur. this time with admiration for Johnson. But Johnson wasn't done. He held up another envelope. "There's still one more thing you need to see," he said. The hall was so silent you could hear the ceiling fans turning. Cameras stayed fixed on Ruth as she clutched the microphone. Her knuckles had turned white. Johnson stood calm, still holding the unopened envelope. "Tell them," he said again, louder this time. "Tell them what you did." Ruth's eyes darted across the crowd. Faces she had invited to celebrate her success were now watching like a jury. The politician's face was stone. Security men stood frozen, waiting for orders. She opened her mouth, but only a dry croak came out. She reached for water, her hand trembling. She stammered. "I did what any woman would do to survive." Johnson's voice rose. "Survive? You abandoned 4 children. You refused to help when 2 were dying. 1 is in the ground because of your survival. Tell the truth." Her knees buckled. She dropped the microphone. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is this true?" Another guest muttered, "She's a monster." The politician's voice cut through. "Answer him." Ruth's eyes brimmed with tears. She took the mic again, her voice breaking. Yes, I left him. I left my children. I said terrible things. I thought I was chasing destiny. I thought poverty was a disease I had to escape." A wave of whispers swept through the hall. For the first time in years, Ruth said the words out loud. It felt like swallowing broken glass. Johnson's face softened for a moment, then hardened again. "And while our child was dying, you called me a mistake." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know. I didn't think it would come to this." While Ruth's confession echoed in the hall, Johnson's mind flashed back to the hospital. The smell of antiseptic. The small hand of his dying twin gripping his thumb. The nurse looking away because she knew he couldn't pay. He had sworn on that tiny grave he would never let anyone humiliate his family again. That vow had fueled every late night at the gate, every book he read about finance, every decision to build his new life. Tonight wasn't just revenge. It was closure. But as he looked at Ruth now, shaking, exposed, no longer proud, another feeling crept in. Not pity exactly, but something like sorrow for what they had both become. The politician snapped his fingers at his aide. "Call the police. She stole from me. She's on her own." 2 uniformed men began to walk toward Ruth. She spun around, panic flashing in her eyes. "Please, Johnson," she whispered. "Don't let them take me away. Not like this." Gasped again. The crowd leaned in. Cameras zoomed tighter. Johnson didn't move. "You weren't thinking of mercy when you spat on me at your door," he said quietly. The politician barked. "Arrest her." The officers reached for her arms. Ruth struggled, looking desperately at Johnson. "Please," she cried. "Our children will see this. Don't let them see me in handcuffs." Inside Johnson, something cracked. This wasn't what he had planned. He had wanted her to feel the sting of humiliation, yes, but not for their children to carry the shame of a mother in prison. He raised his hand. "Wait." The officers stopped. The politician turned. "Why are you stopping them?" he demanded. "This is my company's case," Johnson said. "Not yours. You want her arrested for stealing your money. That's your decision. But as for the loan," he paused, the envelope still in his hand. "I haven't decided yet." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some guests nodded in respect. Others whispered, "Is he going to forgive her?" Ruth fell to her knees. "Please, Johnson, don't take my house. Don't take my child home. I'll pay. I'll do anything." Johnson looked at the envelope, then at her. "Inside this envelope," he said slowly, "is something that can either destroy you completely or give you a chance to stand again. The choice will depend on what you do now." "What is it?" she whispered. "Before I open it," he said, "I need you to promise, right here, in front of everyone, that you'll face the consequences of your actions, not run from them again." Ruth nodded quickly, tears streaming. "I promise." He stared at her for a long moment, then opened the envelope. Paper slid out onto the table. The cameras caught every detail. It wasn't another loan notice. It was something else, a legal transfer document with her name and a signature line. The politician frowned. What is that? Johnson's voice carried across the hall. It's a conditional transfer of this property back to her name, but only if she signs a confession of fraud, repays every cent under a strict schedule, and agrees to volunteer at the children's hospital where our twin died. If she breaks any condition, the property reverts permanently to my company. Gasps again. A woman in the crowd whispered, "He's giving her a second chance?" Another muttered, "That's tougher than prison." Ruth stared at the paper. You're not taking it from me?" "I don't want your house," Johnson said. "I wanted you to understand what you did, and now I want you to fix what you broke. Start with yourself." Ruth's hands shook as she picked up a pen. "I'll do it," she whispered. The politician sneered. "You're on your own. Don't ever call me again." He stormed out, cameras following him. Ruth's signature trembled onto the page. When she finished, she looked up at Johnson. "Thank you," she whispered. Johnson turned to the crowd. "Let this be a lesson," he said firmly. "We chase wealth and forget the people who stood with us. But life turns. Destiny turns. Always treat people with dignity, especially when they're down. One day, you might be the one on your knees." Applause rippled slowly through the hall. Cameras flashed. But as Ruth wiped her tears, Johnson's lawyer stepped up and whispered something in his ear. His face changed. He looked sharply at Ruth. "What did you do with the second loan?" the lawyer murmured. Johnson's eyes narrowed. "Second loan?" Ruth froze. She had thought no one would ever find out about the secret loan she had taken under a fake name, a loan large enough to ruin even his company if left unpaid. The hall, already tense, erupted again. Guests leaned forward like a wave crashing toward the stage. Journalists raised their cameras higher. Johnson's lawyer held out a second file. "We just received confirmation, sir," she said. "A loan of $5 million was taken 2 months ago under a false name, but linked to Mrs. Ruth's ID. It hasn't been paid." Johnson's jaw clenched. "Is this true, Ruth?" Ruth's hand shook. I... Answer me." His voice echoed off the marble walls. "I didn't mean to," she cried. "I was desperate. The politician was cutting my allowance. I thought I could invest, make profit, and repay before anyone found out. Please, Johnson, don't ruin me." Gasps rippled again. This wasn't just a mansion anymore. This was a live drama unraveling. The politician, who had paused at the door, turned back with a smirk. "Looks like your billionaire wife is a fraud," he hissed. Security stepped closer. Even some guests began filming with their phones. Ruth's perfect image had shattered completely. Johnson stared at her. For a moment he felt dizzy, like the room was tilting. $5 million wasn't a joke. Even his company could feel that hit. All the old anger came rushing back. The hospital nights, the tiny grave, her words at the door. But beneath the anger was a question gnawing at him. How had she fallen so low? The Ruth he'd married had been ambitious, but also tender, capable of singing lullabies at 2 a.m. Now she was on her knees in a ballroom, surrounded by strangers. He took a breath. "Do you know what this means?" he asked quietly. Ruth's eyes welled. "It means you'll take everything. It means I'm finished." "No," he said. "It means you've dragged my company, the only thing feeding our children, into your mess." The crowd gasped. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was survival. Johnson turned to his lawyer. "Prepare to freeze every asset tied to that second loan. Block the accounts. Seize the vehicles. I want every cent recovered." "Yes, sir," Grace replied. Ruth collapsed to the floor. "Please, not the cars, not the accounts. My child." "Your child will be cared for," Johnson cut in, "but you will face the consequences." She crawled toward him. "I'll go to jail, Johnson." "I know, but don't let the world see it. Don't let the children see it." He knelt, his face inches from hers. "You think you can keep running? That's how you ended up here." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I lost myself. I wanted to show the world I was somebody. I thought leaving you was my ticket out, but it was my ticket into hell." The hall fell silent again. Some guests looked away. Others whispered, "She's finished." Johnson stood, turned to the crowd, and spoke. "All of you came here tonight thinking you were attending a party. but you're actually witnessing a lesson. Wealth without integrity is a trap. Loans are not free money. Pride destroys faster than poverty. The applause was muted, uneasy. He looked back at Ruth. I will not decide your punishment tonight. The law will handle the fraud. But as for the children, he signaled, and an aide brought in a small boy holding a school bag. Ruth's child with the politician. The boy looked confused. Mommy, he said softly. Ruth reached out, sobbing. Baby. Johnson bent down. Your father is gone, he told the boy gently. But you're not alone. You will live with your mother for now, under strict supervision. He handed Ruth a document. You will sign this custody arrangement. You will volunteer at the hospital as agreed. You will work off the second loan. And you will tell the truth about everything, publicly. Ruth's hand trembled over the paper. If I do all this, she whispered, will you still hate me? Johnson looked at her for a long moment. Hate is easy, he said quietly, but it won't raise our children. She signed. Cameras flashed. The hall buzzed. People were no longer sure if they were watching revenge or redemption. Then, just as the tension began to ease, a new voice cut through the room, a deep, angry voice from the entrance. I'm here for my money. Everyone turned. A tall man in a dark suit strode in, flanked by two bodyguards. He held a briefcase and waved a contract. This woman, he barked, pointing at Ruth, owes me. She borrowed $5 million from me. 2. Under another name. I'm no charity. Ruth's face went pale as chalk. The guests gasped louder than ever. Johnson felt the blood drain from his face. Another loan? From a private lender? This was worse than he thought. The tension in the room was sharp enough to cut through silence. The private lender's voice boomed as he slammed the table. Ruth, today you either pay or I strip this house bare. Ruth froze, her hands trembling. Johnson stepped forward, his eyes cold but steady. Enough, Johnson said firmly. You fed off her desperation long enough. The lender laughed mockingly. And who are you to stop me? She owes me millions. This is business. But Johnson wasn't bluffing. From his coat pocket, he produced a folder. Legal papers sealed with a court stamp. This, Johnson said, dropping the file on the table, is proof. Your contracts are illegal. Your lending business is unlicensed, and every agreement you forced Ruth into is void. I've filed with the Financial Crimes Commission. You don't own a single coin here. The room went silent. The lender's grin cracked. For the first time, he looked trapped. He tried to snatch the papers, but Johnson blocked his hand. Touch it, Johnson warned, and I'll have you arrested right here. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. For years, she had carried the weight of shame and debt, thinking she had no way out. Now, before her, Johnson had torn apart the very chain strangling her. The lender stammered, You can't prove. Johnson cut him short. I can, and I will. I've traced your ties to the politician you serve. Both of you will answer for laundering money through vulnerable women like Ruth. The man's arrogance shattered. He stumbled back, muttering curses, before storming out into the night. For the first time in years, the house breathed again. Ruth's breaking point. Ruth sank into the chair, covering her face. Johnson, I never meant for things to go this far. I only borrowed because I was desperate. And when I couldn't pay, I lied, I schemed, I hurt you, I hurt everyone. Johnson knelt in front of her. His voice was steady but heavy with sorrow. Ruth, what you did broke this family. But today, you stood at a crossroad, and you didn't run. That's the first step. Her tears streamed freely now. Can I ever be forgiven? What is your own decision regarding this story? Do you think Johnson should forgive Ruth and keep her as a wife again, or drop your opinion in the comment section? Thanks for watching.